You're listening to Do That Well with your hosts, Brenda Brown and Karen Thrall, a podcast about real experiences and how to turn them into life lessons. Unscripted, honest, funny, genuine, and passionate. A series of conversations where we explore every aspect of human interaction and provoke each other to do life well.
Here we go. All right. So, on this episode, I am really wanting to talk about the importance of slowing down. So, it's in the forefront of my mind. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot, something I'm trying to practice more. So, we did forest bathing and now we're going to do this thing on slowing down. And I do want to talk about when is it good to have that urgency and when is it not healthy? When is it What's the difference between being fast and being rushed?
Mhm.
That those like when do we fool ourselves and we think, "Oh, we're just, oh, I just got a lot on my plate. I'm getting it done." Like which could be great, but then when is it rushed and rushed? Actually, rush causes us to make mistakes. It can create anxiety and things like that. So I would like to practice in my life slowing down, and
Mhm.
it's really bizarre how much I'm so aware of it, and it's cracking me up because I'm constantly a lot saying, "Karen, slow down. Karen, just slow down." And I was like, "Wow, it's so ingrained in me to speed things up." And I'm having memories of so many times just rushing through stuff because it's a game. I don't know. So anyway, so I really want to talk about, and I'd love to hear your perspective. And you also brought up some things about slowing down that I thought was really good too.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to talk about this. I personally in my life find I also have a hard time slowing down, but on the other side of that coin, I also sometimes have a hard time starting.
Mm,
So I feel like for me, there's not an in between, and I'm struggling to find that balance. So I'm really
mm,
curious
mm.
as we dive into this conversation. I would like my personal goal is to see if we can talk about what happens in that in between place as well. Because I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
love
that I'm
that.
alone in this kind of all or nothing.
Mm-mm.
Like you're either completely zoned out, you're not doing anything, you're like zombie watching Netflix, or I'm like, go, 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 110% on everything. And neither of those seem like the most optimal way of being. So,
Yeah. Okay. So this is good. Okay. So Brenda, you're saying I'm either gonna like chill out if I'm understanding it, or I'm like running. Like there's like I'm either like if game is on, or I'm like popcorn in a movie. Is
exactly.
that okay?
Yes.
And then mine is so that's let's do that one. So we're gonna do that one. And then the second one thing we're also gonna do is mine is I'm like why? Why am I doing things so speedily? And I want to slow down, and I'm finding it's causing me anxiety, and I don't. And I mean, what's weird is because I had this other side of me that loves to go for walks and one with nature, and I love all that. But it's actually exposing in me more and more that I've got this thing that it's time to tell myself, "Hey, slow down." Even saying it makes me all calm. Okay, so we're gonna do those two. We're gonna
Mhm.
do those two first. Let's start with yours because it's more fun. So, all right. So tell me, we're gonna try this out. Tell me, what would you want to see happen? And again, listeners are relating. Like we're gonna assume that 50% of listeners are relating to you, and 50% are gonna relate to me. So we're gonna cover as many people as possible. So what do you really wish would happen? How do you see like the perfect scenario or the perfect vibe?
I think for me, the perfect scenario is one where is this a time management issue? I don't know. I think it's one where I don't necessarily always feel a sense of urgency. I think that's really where it stems from because when I'm not doing anything, if it's chill out and watch a movie or zone out, it's probably because I'm trying to avoid the urgency or I've gone so hard with the rushing and being more of the Karen person then I it's not a choice, like, I have to just completely shut my brain off because I'm it's such a high anxiety place that I just crash. So I think the perfect scenario for me is this balance of, can I do things, if there is a time frame or a time limit, can I do them with some swiftness, but without feeling that sense of urgency and that anxiety and this uh, almost feeling like someone's going to come down on me with a ruler on my hand if I don't keep up this unsustainable level of
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, because I remember I've always felt this way. Like we have our A game, and we've talked about this before, but sometimes we have an M game or a X game or a G game. Like it's not, we're not always in the top of the top, but the pressure to perform at that high level. And I know there's in the professional world, once you hit a quota, the quota gets increased. So it's never quite, you never quite just arrive. You arrive for a moment, everybody applauds you, and then they push you. Okay, now it's go to the next, go to the next. And there's that, when do we just stop and enjoy the moment and then refuel without feeling like I have to do this, I have to be this thing again. Like it's almost, it's becoming the new norm,
Hmm.
this fast urgency thing. So for you to like go, I'm totally shut down, I got nothing. Does it create shame? Like, could it be that you just need to stop doing it because you just ran at such high speed?
I think yes. I do think there's like a shame, an element of shame. I think there's an element of guilt. Um, and then I suppose for me as well, I don't want to feel like I'm getting all the way to that point that it's my only choice is to take a vacation from the urgency, right? Like it seems like
Mm,
I should be able to take a weekend from my sense of urgency, but
right.
not a full on like full stop because it's, and like you said, and then it's looming over me that I'm going to have to go back to it. I have to go back to this person. So I'm always flip-flopping. It's always one or the other, and I want to find the middle ground.
Wow. So you see urgency, I think you see an urgency as something you return to.
Mhm.
See, and this is what I'm saying. Urgency is not a lifestyle. Have we turned it into a lifestyle?
Right.
Like for you to think about that, you were think, I have to go back to that. Like, how did that even come into our existence? That
Right.
we would go back to urgency.
Exactly. Because it shouldn't be when I just decide that I need to decompress, I shouldn't
Yeah.
feel like this is my vacation from urgency. I'm gonna have to go
Yeah.
back to urgency on
Yeah.
Monday, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, urgency, the definition is from the Oxford Dictionary. It's important and it needs swift action. That's what urgent means. Urgent is something that's important and requires swift action.
Hmm.
So, are we trying to make everything important? Not only important, but also it's so important that we have to act on it immediately. What makes us see too much of life as this is important, I have to act on it immediately. And then like it feels like, we know that retail's this way, sales is this way, corporate quotas are this way, um, our quality of life is this way. Everything's drive-throughs and pickups and curbside pickups. So it's in us. It's in
Right.
this thing. And then you've got European cultures where there's a siesta, or you have like South America cultures where there's a siesta, and but we don't have those. We don't even we do not have siestas.
No. And
Mm,
it's so interesting as I hear you, as I'm listening to you, this idea of important, but then also that it needs to be done quickly.
mhm.
And I'm really thinking about that. You really got me stuck on that. This idea of, is it that we're just saying that everything is so important?
Yes.
Because it's, I mean, sure, our lives are important, but it. It's that
Mm.
combination of, is it so important that it also needs to be done immediately?
Exactly. Exactly.
This concept is really blowing my mind right now because I'm like, "Well, yeah, things are important, but no, they don't need to be done immediately." And then on that other side of that coin, there are going to be times where things will be
Yeah.
need to be done immediately, but it's almost as if we've lost our gauge. Like, we've
Mhm.
lost our ability to be able to discern between those things because, as you
Mhm.
said, we do live in a culture where everything's this instant gratification,
Mhm.
right? I mean, there's drive-throughs, there's streaming services. You can just watch the movie you wanna watch as soon as it comes out.
Mhm.
You know, on our phones, we've gotten so used to being able to text someone, and we expect an immediate
Mhm.
response.
Mhm.
And
And it becomes urgent. All of a
right.
sudden, if you don't get the text response within a few hours, your brain goes into urgency, anxiety, panic. What's wrong? Are they okay? Like, did I upset them? Was it something you read your text? Like, even that, how did we get programmed? How did we become a society that we are including urgency in all we do? So my quirky story is, I couldn't believe it. Well, I mean, there's so many. I have so many stories because it's in the forefront of my mind, right? Like, if I'm going to buy a red car, and all of a sudden all I see is red cars, kind of thing,
Right.
right? So it's in the forefront of my mind. And I was unloading the dishwasher. This was just a few days ago. I was unloading the dishwasher, and so fast. And I realized how loud it is to unload a dishwasher quickly. It's really loud. Yeah, like, you pull all the plates together and you yank them out or whatever, and they make clink, 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 and then you put them and you open clink, 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 like, the whole thing, and I went, "Wow," like, "Karen, slow down." So I did just slow down, and I forced myself to do one item at a time, walk over, put the fork in, come back. I was at first I was like, "Oh, this is painful." Like, to just it was so slow, but then it felt good. Because it was an important thing to do, but it didn't need swift action.
Mhm.
It was an important thing to do to get your kitchen all nice and clean and get a dishwasher empty for the next time we have dirty dishes. It isn't, but it didn't need swift action. And the wild thing, Brenda, is the noise changed and I could hear the outside sounds of the birds because I was just going
Mhm.
slowly. And then now I was like, wow, this is and I felt better. I felt better. So it was important without swiftness.
Right.
And I want that back in my life. And because I'm doing a lot on nervous energy right now, like my whole summer months is studying this internal nervous energy, and I keep finding these gold nuggets, and this is one of them. This slowing down, and the sounds are different even when you
Mhm.
slow down. So, okay, your turn. I tag,
Well,
you're it.
I was just going to say, I think we perhaps have touched on our first takeaway here, right? Is this idea of, when you find yourself in this space where you're starting to get anxious or feeling, really urgent or whatever it may be, do we need to ask ourselves, is this important? Does it need swift action?
Mhm.
It, for me,
So,
that's like a really good starting point in this
yeah,
conversation. If you
yeah.
find yourself in that high anxiety place, you're typing 1,000 words per minute, everything needed to get done yesterday.
Yes.
Can you just stop and sit and ask yourself, is this important? Does it require swift action? And let that inform the next steps you take in that activity.
Because 'Cause you're also communicating to your body. Your body is going to kick into gear, but if you go, "It doesn't require swift action," your body's gonna go, "Okay." I just wonder if physically, if we would notice a much slower pace in what we do, for me anyway, for sure. Like, I actually wear it with pride a little bit that I can really get through things fast. And I don't know anymore. Like, I'm going, oh, like, I'm not going to throw it all away, but I don't know anymore if being known for getting things done quickly. I don't know anymore if that's what I want to be known for.
Right. So this is the other thing that you and I did talk about offline, if you will, but bringing it to the podcast. So, in this conversation, my mind really naturally goes to this idea of how, in our Western civilization, in the US specifically, let's talk about because that's where we're living, and Canada. We can include Canada. Um,
Yes.
but this idea that we are a very results driven society. We're very achievement based. We like to really talk about our successes. And those are the things that a lot of us are going towards or really will define our lives in a way. We define ourselves by our achievements. And in this conversation, my mind can't help but go to this idea of what happens if you start to take away some of that? Does everything need to be results based? Does everything need to be an achievement? Can we sit in the space where it's about the process or about the journey to get to the end rather than just the end result? Because I think when it's appropriate, when we can let go of this idea of having to get to a result or having to get to an achievement, then we can free up some of that time and you lose some of that sense of urgency because it no longer needs to be completed with swiftness if it's not a goal that needs to be achieved in x amount of days. um,
Mhm,
so that's where
mhm,
my mind starts to wander a bit too in this conversation as well.
mhm. And so this whole thing on results, we if you put a time limit, then it's you create a result. Like, for some reason, results and time are one and the same. Like,
I think in
we
my mind they are, because how many times do you hear like, what's your 5-year plan? Or
yeah,
what are you trying to achieve in the next year? What's your goal? When we talked about resolutions even, what's your resolution for this year? And I feel that most the time, and I can't say all of the time, of course, but I think that most the time when we have a goal or a result or an achievement that we're trying to go to, we do put a time limit on it. We'll say, I want to achieve this goal by September 2nd, which is why I did catch myself earlier and I asked, perhaps this is a time management issue.
well, uh,
But I don't
may
necessarily think
no, I
that
don't know. I don't know. I think they're 2 different topics.
I do. I agree.
I
Thank you
do.
for the
I think this
reassurance,
yeah,
Karen.
yeah, I think this is about what is it's what you coined when you said when you took the definition made into a call to action. What is it about us that says it's important with swift action?
Right.
And so then we go into results, and you're saying, like, but we do that with results.
Mhm.
Even our results are important with swift action. Why can't they just be important? Why can't
Right.
our results just be important without swift action?
Exactly.
And then we put this time pressure, and then it becomes swift action.
Right. And I do, and I think, and perhaps that's where, rather than seeing it as a result or an achievement, we just want to think again more about the journey or the things that you're going to learn from it. So if I take this into an
Hmm,
example, let's say that I want to learn to speak Spanish. That is
hmm,
not something I'm actively doing. I'm just using it as an example, but there's a difference between me saying, I would like to learn Spanish this year. So in 2021, I'm going to learn how to speak Spanish. So there's a difference between saying that and saying, I want to learn to speak Spanish. I'm very curious about the language. I think that it'd be really fun to be able to utilize it on occasion if I go on vacations or with my friends that speak Spanish. I think it'd just be a very enriching experience for myself. I like the idea of exercising my brain in a new way and trying to learn a language. So it's the same thing in the sense that in both scenarios, I want to learn to speak Spanish. But in the first scenario, I'm like putting this deadline on it and I'm telling myself that it's the
hmm,
achievement that I have to have. But in the second scenario, I'm just looking at it as to all the benefits and all of the things that I'm going to get out of the process of learning Spanish.
hmm. When we put time as the reward, I will learn Spanish this time next year, I'm fluent in Spanish. And we put that time metric as a reward.
Mhm.
That is a lot. That's putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to accomplish something that we can't promise or guarantee that's going to happen.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to go sideways for just a second here, segue,
Yeah.
and then come back. So in the sports, when I was thinking about slowing down, like for example, golf, my swing is slow, but it goes straight and far. But if my swing is fast, the chances of it going to the right, to the left, or just not really hitting the ball is going to be higher risk for me. And what I've noticed is the slower I play, the faster my game is. And I because I'm really reflecting on the slow down, I'm also practicing on the golf course. And these last 3 games, I've slowed down and my game sped up.
Wow.
Right?
That's so
So
crazy.
then I was looking at sports, and the Earl Monroe, who's an NBA player, I have the quote right here, former NBA player back in the day. He says, "Just be patient. Let the game come to you. Don't rush. Be quick, but don't hurry."
Hmm.
See, like that is a profound statement.
Yeah.
So if you look at like what you're saying about results, don't rush, be quick, but don't hurry. And that and so with me, like when I slow down and you think, and these athletes will talk about being in the flow. And when they're in the flow, it's like time stands still. They're
Mhm.
not aware of time. They all of a sudden they're so into these professionals are so into the game, they've lost track of time. It's not about time. It's everything's working. They've got it. And I think, wow, like they're in the zone. And you think, wow, like think about the times you've been in the zone.
Right.
And it's just everything slows down around you, but yet everything speeds up. And I want that. And I think that's the opposite of urgency.
Mhm.
I think that's the opposite of results. I think that, like, what is that? And I really want that for my life.
How do we get there?
Okay.
I'm sitting here thinking, "Well, I want that too."
Yeah. Okay. So pretend we're professional athletes and we want to get in the zone. What does a professional athlete do to be able to even have that space, to create that space for themselves?
I think that there's an element of what am I trying to say? There's this element of competing against oneself, I think, that a lot
Mm.
of athletes have.
Like your personal best.
Mhm.
They're playing their personal best,
Right.
or they're
Like
committed to their personal best.
right, versus,
Mm,
an
but are
external force, and I think that that can perhaps come into play in our conversation with time, right? Because when we're thinking about time or urgency, I think a lot of times that is being driven by an external force
Whoa.
rather than being internally driven for ourselves. So those are a couple things that come to mind for me.
Wow. The urgency to complete results is the pressure from the outside coming towards us. An
Mhm.
athlete has an internal force that goes from the inside out.
Right.
So now we go on a whole topic of people pleasing and accommodating. I mean, this is a spider web, but
Totally.
but slowing everything down is actually for an athlete, if we can use that. I love the language, is waking up the internal force,
Mhm.
which is so true because in golf, the more I'm confident, the better I play. So the more I'm really connected here, and I welcome all the sounds, I welcome the noise, I welcome everything, the better I can play. So that there's something about external force versus internal force. So urgency, and it's important with swift action, is coming at us. So because I'm thinking, going along with, I'm going to go with that. So I think the second takeaway is the internal force. I love your Star Wars. We're just gonna go with the internal force be with you. May the internal force be with you. Hashtag. Um, I think that's the second takeaway. Is this coming from within? This importance is it coming? If it's coming from within, slowing down will move you faster. If it's coming from without and you're feeling the outside pressures, you're going to hurry and rush. And all of a sudden, this pressure to rush and get it done and meet that deadline is going to it's going to have that kind of impact on you. So the
Mhm.
reason I like that is for me, um, again, I'm talking about my nervous energy, and when I slow down, that one of the things that lifts off of me is the nervous energy.
Hmm.
And so when I did the dishwasher and I slowed down, my nervous energy started dissipating because I was putting this pressure on myself to be move so quickly. For what? Where was I going? Like, what was
Right.
I going to do next? That was so important. But it's a habit I've created that I'm supposed to move through things quickly.
Well, of course, like we do in Do That Well fashion here, we've taken on a big topic in a short amount of time. But today in this conversation, for me, I really want to go back to the first thing that we discovered, this idea of when it comes to urgency, is the task at hand, is it important, and does it require swift action? I think asking yourself that question when you are starting to feel anxious or you're starting to feel like you have to rush through something, if you can ask yourself those questions, is it important, does it require swift action? And if the answer is no to one of those questions, then you can
Hmm.
likely take a
Yes.
breath, slow it down, remove the
Yes.
urgency.
Well
That
said.
that for me, that's a really big light bulb moment in
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
this topic.
hmm hmm It's really well said. And the second one is, if there's a if you're feeling the pressure from external, like your swiftness, this feeling of urgency and time and results is based on what's coming at you, take care of the internal. Make sure that you are maybe taking more time if you have no control over that, if it's work related or something like that. If it's relationship related, you do have more control over that. Because in relationships, it's not about urgency in a relationship. So if you're feeling this pressure of urgency in a relationship, wow, like pause, and find that internal, like you said, the internal force. May the internal force be with you. Find that and slow that down. That's what I'm practicing. I'm practicing slowing that way down, and it's allowing me to listen and hear sounds and be more aware of. It's just been wonderful, but it's really slowing my steps and
Yeah, breathing, I think too.
mhm.
I think we did talk
Yeah,
about that here and there, but we didn't really
yeah,
name it as a point, and I do wanna throw that one in at the end. Like,
it's so true.
breathe, take a deep breath,
Hmm.
slow your
Hmm.
breath down,
Hmm.
and just take a moment every now and
Hmm.
then. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you all for coming on this journey with us today on Do That Well. I know that I learned a few new things, and I'm excited
Hmm.
to practice this slowing down, this idea
Hmm.
of what happens when we try to relieve ourselves of some of the urgency in life.
Hmm. Great.
Okay. We'll be back next week with a new topic. Thanks for listening.